Hello children, welcome to today's English class. Hope you all are safe, fine and healthy at home. In the previous class, we tried to practice some writing skills that is in your syllabus. We had learned how to write analytical paragraphs. I'm sure you must be practicing writing them by looking into a lot of examples from your own NCERT textbooks. Today, let us go back to our prose lessons. And today we will be reading the story which is there in the 3rd chapter of your prose textbook. This is a story of a little girl whose feelings for her father changes from fear to understanding, which after reading you might find happens in most of your homes also. So this chapter is The Little Girl by Catherine Mansfield, and the little girl here is Kezia. So let me just narrate this story to you, and after that I have noted some key points from the lesson. We will try to understand them. I had taught you how to make the key points after reading a particular lesson and giving topics or subheadings to different paragraphs and then noting down the key points discussed in each paragraph. So I hope you must be practicing those techniques also. So today please listen carefully as I narrate the story, because it is a very interesting story and you will definitely like it, because the attributes or qualities of the little girl that has been mentioned in this story might be quite similar to most of you, isn't it? Girls are mostly attached to their fathers. Many of the girls who are right now watching the class might also be their dad's girl, right? And dads are always proud of their daughters. But in some houses, maybe after reading this story, you will feel that it is happening with me also. This is the case with me also. I am also experiencing the same thing. But things do change. That is what the story tells us. Here, Kezia is a little girl, and you know, her dad was a figure whom she always was scared of, right? She was not free to talk to her father. She was scared to go in front of him, stand in front of him, because he was a tall figure and he looked like a giant, and his voice was very loud, and he always spoke rudely, you know. He was always he was always in a bad mood and always tried to scold Kezia or shout at her. So this girl was so scared of her father. She was always in fear. There was fear in her mind as far as her relation with her father was concerned. Okay, so when she went in front of her father, you know, she stammered. You know what is stammering, children? Like, for example, if father asked her something, she would say like, I, dad, isn't it? So many of you might also do out of fear sometimes. And this is a disability also with some children, that they stammer while they talk. But this girl Kezia did not have any disability of the kind. She spoke perfectly with everybody else. She was perfect in speech when she spoke to maybe her mother, her grandmother or her friends. But the moment she came in front of her father, she started stammering. And her father used to scold her more when she stammered, isn't it? And he used to tell her mother to take the child away and to take care of the child, to teach the child manners. and to teach the child to behave herself. So this was the case in the house. And the moment the father left for office, she used to be very happy. She used to be out of fear at that time. She used to just wait for the father to go out of the house. The moment the father went out of the house, she had a great sense of relief. You know, she thought now she was free. Now there is nobody to shout at her or to talk rudely to her, right? So this was the kind of relationship between Kezia and her father. She was not even free to talk to him, right? So there was an atmosphere of fear in the house, and she always tried to hide herself from her father. She never came in front of him. Whereas the moment he came from the office, he used to talk in a loud voice and call her in a loud voice like, "Where are you? Come and remove my shoes," giving orders to her. And then she would reluctantly, that means unwillingly, come down the stairs and with great fear remove her father's shoes, and she won't even look at her father's face because she was even afraid of his appearance, the way he looked, you know, tall and big and huge like a giant, right? And his voice also too loud. So, and this small little girl, she used to do things, you know, in a very quiet manner when she was there in front of her father. And then what happened one day? There was also another character in the story, her grandmother. Of course, her mother also used to encourage her. She used to be polite with her, talk very lovingly to her, right? But the grandma was the one in the family who used to really take care of this girl and make her sleep, to make her comfortable in the house, okay? And to make her realize that her grandma is there with her. Though she was, you know, she found herself very protective with her grandmother. So the grandmother, what she used to do, because she knew the relationship between Kezia and her father, right? She knew that Kezia was scared of her father, and she did not dare to go and stand in front of him. She could not freely speak to him, freely express her ideas or share her feelings with her father. So sometimes the grandmother, especially on Sundays or on holidays, when the father and mother were sitting together, she used to ask Kezia to go and spend some time with her father and mother, talk to them, so that she finds herself free and comfortable in their company. But still, whenever Kezia went down to be in the presence of her parents, you know, she found her mother was busy reading, and the father was also reading with his spectacles on his eyes, and he looked so busy, and at the same time she found him also you know, so rude. The way he looked at her through his spectacles made her afraid. So she could not dare to talk in front of him. So this was the condition at home. So now in Kezia's mind, she had framed an image of all the fathers, right? Because of her experience with her father, she found him very rude, very huge, very giant, right? Very fearful, a person who always shouts at her, a person who always orders her to do things for him, right? So she had framed an image of all the fathers. She thought all the fathers are like this. Maybe in every house, fathers behave like this. So she had framed an opinion about fathers. Okay, for her, mother and grandmother were okay, they were caring, they were loving, but her father was a character whom she always had a fear of, right? And she was not free. So now, what happened one day? The grandmother, who always tried to remove this fear from Kezia's mind and to make her feel comfortable with her father and also to establish a loving relationship with him, one day asked Kezia to make a beautiful birthday gift for her father. She asked her to make a pin cushion, a beautiful pin cushion out of yellow silk, right? So now this poor girl thought, okay, I'll make this beautiful gift for my dad. So she took 2 pieces of clothes and stitched on all the 3 sides. Now a cushion means you need to fill something inside, maybe old papers or old pieces of clothes to make it to look like a pad. Okay, so she tried to find out from the scrap the things which she could fill inside this pin cushion which she was making. So she had stitched on all the 3 sides and left one side for papers or clothes to be filled in. So she searched for the scrap in her mother's room and everywhere in the house, but she could not find anything. Finally, what did she do? She found some papers on the table. So without realizing what those papers were, she tore the papers off into small pieces and filled inside the cloth and stitched the 4th side also, and she made a beautiful padded cushion, pin cushion for her father. Now, what were those papers which she tore off? Dear children, you can even not imagine what those papers were. Those papers were the speech prepared by her father to be presented in his office. It was an important speech. And when the father started searching for the speech, there was a huge hue and cry inside the house. Hue and cry means, there was anger, there was confusion, and the father started shouting at the mother and trying to find out where those papers had gone. Now he asked the mother to find out from Kezia if she had seen those papers. So when the mother asked Kezia, "Dear Kezia, did you find any papers inside the room?" This poor girl, as innocent as she was, she revealed the truth. She told her mother that she had torn those papers. Right? The moment the mother heard that she had torn off those papers, she explained this to the father. And now the father, you can imagine what would be his condition. He was, in anger, with his eyes red and shouting. And he was shouting at Kezia, shouting at the mother. And, he asked the mother to take the child away and to take her to her room. Right? Because he was very angry. Right? And he did not know what to do. And this poor girl could not even tell that why she had torn those papers. You know that she had torn those papers to make a beautiful birthday present for her father. But the child could not express her feelings. There were tears in her eyes. She was crying. She was crying out of fear. You know that already she was scared of her father, and there was a feeling of fear always in her mind, and she stammered in front of her father. After some time, what happened? The father went into her room with a ruler, and the girl really got scared, and he asked the girl to open her palms, and he said he is going to punish her for tearing the papers. And so with the ruler he started beating her, and her palms became red and pink, right? And the girl started crying, and she cried and cried and cried. So she could not come out of that situation. Okay? So this is one part. Now what happened after that? Now the story moves to the neighborhood, right? There was the McDonald's family. The McDonald's were their neighbors. So when Kezia happened to look out of the window of her room, she saw the McDonald family playing in the garden. So she found that they were really happy. There were 5 children in the family, and the children were playing with the father, and they burst into laughter. They were playing the tag game, right? And they ran here and there in the garden, and they were so happy. The children were hanging on the shoulders and on the pockets of the father, and the father was also running around with the children, and they all were so happy. So now Kezia realized that all the fathers are not like her father. You remember she had framed an opinion that all fathers are like her father only. But now when she saw the McDonald's playing in the garden with their children, the father playing with his children in the garden, enjoying, laughing, so now her opinion of fathers changed. So now she felt how happy those children are. They are so close to their father. They are playing with him, they are enjoying, they are laughing. They are so free with their father, right? So now slowly her opinion changed, but still she thought that how unlucky I am that my father is like this. Still her opinion about her father had not changed. Now it so happened that her mother was not well, and she was taken to the hospital, and the grandmother also had to stay in the hospital with her mother. Now she was left alone in the house with Alice, the cook, right? And when the grandmother was there in the house, Kezia used to be very comfortable, because whenever she was afraid in the darksome night, or whenever she had nightmares, Kezia usually had nightmares. You know what are nightmares? A fearful dream, a scary dream, right? Many a times you might have also experienced nightmares, and after which you get up sweating, right? And you feel that that is the reality, it's really happening with you. So whenever Kezia had nightmares, or she was afraid in the night, her grandmother was there to be with her, to sleep with her, to make her comfortable. But now Alice, the cook, was there in the house, and she was not there with her in her bedroom. She was all alone, and she was scared of darkness. And at night she was all alone in the room, and she was again afraid of having nightmares. She thought, what will happen if I get nightmares today also, because grandma is also not there in the house and I'm all alone in my bedroom. But somehow she slept, and suddenly she had a nightmare. And what did she see in her dream? She saw a butcher with a knife and a rope, and he looked very dreadful, very fearful. Suddenly she woke up from her sleep and screamed. And then what happened, children? Something surprising happened. Kezia's father, who was sleeping in his bedroom, came hearing this screaming noise, and he entered the room and came to Kezia with a candle, okay, and he caught hold of her, and then he took her to his own bedroom and made her sleep with him very comfortably. And now Kezia could feel the warmth of the love of her father. And for the first time, she felt and experienced that love. And now her opinion about her dad changed. Now she realized that my father is a nice person. He's not that bad as I had thought. He is a nice man. Maybe he is behaving like this, maybe he is angry, maybe he speaks rudely because he is tired. The whole day he is working, he is out and he is so busy. That's why maybe he is tired. And then finally she tells her father that you have a big heart, dear dad. So in the end of the story, her feeling for her father changes from fear to understanding. Now she understands her father. So there is a change in her attitude at the end of the story. Dear children, don't you feel this happens with you also in your own homes many a time? Maybe you have a different opinion about your parents, and then finally when you try to change your attitude, and when sometimes you get to feel their love and warmth, your opinion is changed and you realize that they are really good. I hope you understood this story. Now let's go to the presentation and try to look at the key points of the story, and also try to look at some of the word meanings and try to understand the story in a better way. The Little Girl by Catherine Mansfield. Now let's look at the subheadings and points which I have tried to make from the lesson. The first heading which I have put there on the slide is the relationship between Kezia and her father in the beginning of the story. So while you're making the points, you divide the chapter into different headings. So the first heading is in the beginning of the story, as you heard right now. What was the relationship between Kezia and her father in the beginning? Okay, a figure to be feared and avoided. Here her father was a figure for her to be feared and avoided. There was a sense of relief when her father left for work, scared of his loud voice and giant appearance. His looks seemed terrific. She stammered in front of him, but not in front of others. Now next, the role of the grandmother. She was very loving and caring. On Sundays, she sent Kezia down to the drawing room to have a nice talk with her parents. She also encouraged Kezia to make a birthday gift for her father, wrapped her in a shawl and rocked her in the rocking chair. That was whenever she felt uncomfortable or she had nightmares, right? So she made her feel comfortable. And then the McDonald's, the neighbor. So their family was a happy family. The father played with the children in the evening. They hanged on his shoulders and onto his coat pockets and ran round and round the flower beds and burst into laughter. Kezia's thoughts about fathers changed. Now, the relationship between Kezia and her father at the end of the story. mother and grandmother in the hospital. Kezia left alone in the house with Alice the cook, scared of nightmares, had a nightmare of a butcher with a knife and rope with a dreadful smile. Father came with a candle, caught Kezia in his arms and took her to his bedroom and made her sleep with him. Asked Kezia to rub her feet against his feet to get them warm. Kezia slept comfortably and felt the warmth of the love of her father. Kezia understood her father and said he had a big heart. So, dear children, the whole story has been put into points. Each paragraph or maybe two paragraphs combined together to have a heading or topic, and then the sub-points in very simple words. If you note down the key points and the headings like this of the story, it will be very useful for you when you revise the lesson. And then it will also help you to write down the question answers. Now let's look at some of the word meanings in the lesson which you might find difficult. Slip down. Slip down means come down quietly and unwillingly. Whenever Kezia was asked by her mother to come down and to remove the shoes of her father or bring him a cup of tea or take back the cup of tea, she came down very quietly and unwillingly. She slipped down, right? Wretched. Wretched means unhappy. Scraps, as I told you before, small pieces of cloth or paper, etc. that are not needed. Hue and cry, angry protest. Hue and cry was there when Kezia had torn her father's important speech. Nightmare, a bad, frightening dream. Snuggle. Snuggle means moved into a warm, comfortable position close to another person. When her father took her to his room and made her sleep with him, she snuggled to his coat. She found herself very comfortable sleeping with her father. Tag. It's a children's game of catching one another. Pin cushion, a small pad for holding pins. Pin cushion which Kezia tried to make for her father to present him on his birthday. Butcher is a person who cuts up and sells meat in a shop. A person who slaughters animals, cuts and sells their meat. Gravely means seriously. I hope you have understood the meaning of these words, and when you read the text, some of the meanings are also given in your text. So when you look at them, it will be easy for you to understand the story in a better manner. I hope you have understood the story and also the way the key points are to be made from the lesson to understand the story or lesson in a better manner. I would request you to read the lesson very carefully with a pencil in your hand, and after you read the lesson and comprehend it and try to understand it, you look at the question answers which are given at the back of the text and try to answer them. Most of the time, the questions which are asked from this chapter are: why was Kezia afraid of her father? And what was the role of the grandmother in making her feel comfortable with her father? Yeah, what were the efforts made by the grandma in making Kezia comfortable with her father? And one important question: why did Kezia's efforts of pleasing her father failed? Why every time she tried to make her father happy, it made him unhappy or it displeased him, right? So I hope you can write the answers to these questions. So write them and practice, and if you have any doubts related to the lesson or any of the topics taught during these classes, you can ask and we will be answering them and clearing your doubts. So, happy learning, stay. I hope you will read the lesson, practice writing the question answers because writing is very important. So, happy learning, stay at home, stay safe.